Hello, volunteers. Welcome to the first edition of Ask Cory. This is the initiative where you can anonymously submit questions about the volunteer program, about me, about ArtsQuest programming in general, and I will answer as many of them as I can get to. Wherever this video is going to be posted, the link to the submission form will also be posted. So if you missed this first edition but have a question you'd like to submit, you'll be able to submit one for the next newsletter. So I've got a couple of questions here for you today, and I'm going to try to get through them as quickly as possible. I'll have this video, and I'll also try to transcribe my messages so you can read them if you're not in a space where you can watch a video or anything like that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and answer our first question. Any really early bird thoughts on Music Fest happening this year, at least in a limited capacity? That's a great question. Everybody's asking it. My hands are a little tied at the moment because everything's sort of confidential and very tentative at this point. But what I will say is that our plans for 2021 are ambitious. So I think that best case scenario, we're going to have something that's a good mix between what we did last year and what we will hopefully return to in 2022 should the COVID crisis be, more or less over by next summer. But for 2021, I think it's going to be really a hybrid event where we're going to inch closer to the festival we all recognize. And then, of course, worst case scenario, we would just do what we did last year, where a lot of stuff is on the south side, a couple of, live performances, but then everything is mostly streamed online, and then the 10 trucks in the PNC parking lot. But that's worst case scenario. So the worst thing we're looking at is what we did last year, and the best thing we're looking at is, something that's a little bit more ambitious and a little bit bigger, and something that's going to feel a little bit more familiar. But stay tuned for more information on that. I love to send emails, so I will keep you as informed as I possibly can on that one. Next question. What is the craziest Music Fest story you can share? We've all been there, we know Music Fest is a great opportunity for crazy stories to happen, some that you can't share in civilized company, so I have to be careful here. One thing that I remember as a favorite is I had to call up a volunteer one day to ask if he'd be willing to come in to cover like an extra shift or something. And so I call him up and I get his voicemail and I say, "Hey, so-and-so, this is Cory from ArtsQuest. How the heck are you? Anyway, I need to ask you about this." And then all of a sudden, Courtney, who was in the trailer with me at the time, starts laughing maniacally, and that makes me laugh, and I'm still on the phone. I'm still leaving a voicemail. And so I start laughing, and it gets to a point where I have to say, "Hey, man, I got to call you back." And I hang up, and I'm still laughing. And I asked Courtney, what's the deal? And she was like, "Who says, 'how the heck are you' on a voicemail? They can't answer, So, we were just laughing for a little bit about that. I gave him a call back, ended up leaving a second voicemail and said, "Hey, I'm really sorry about that. But, here's what I wanted to ask you." And he calls me back a little bit later, and thankfully he was able to take the shift, which helped everybody out. But he said, "Whatever you guys are smoking down there, you should have offered to share it with me." And I said, "The only thing we're smoking down here is hard work." So that made Courtney laugh again, because, who asks things like that? And the answer is, of course, I do. I say things like that. So another thing I can remember from Music Fest 2019 is just the Zinsenplatz beer truck. I spent a lot of my time there. Whenever I think about volunteer positions that I had to fill in for during Music Fest 2019, it was typically at the Zinsenplatz beer truck. And anyone who was there remembers that, that wasn't a traditional beer truck. It wasn't like a full trailer or anything. It was an ambulance that had been retrofitted to be a beer truck. And I don't know what the deal was, but no matter what you did, the beers would just foam coming out of that truck. Even if the kegs were full and the truck was super cold, it didn't matter. And when you had a beer like Miller Lite that just foams under even the best circumstances, you're sitting there and wasting half the product and just, tipping it sideways and just letting the foam hit the trough and hoping for the best, really. But some nights, it was really crazy there. Zinsenplatz was programmed to be sort of the party band area, the thing that would draw people to the edge of the festival. And some nights were certainly that crazy. One night I remember I had a mug mix up where, I was just sort of putting mugs down on the table and someone wasn't paying attention and just grabbed the first mug in front of them and walked away. And I ended up passing a mug to somebody, and he said, "That's not my mug." And I was like, "What do you mean that's not your mug?" And so someone had just walked off with this guy's mug. It was one of the light up 2019 mug versions, so he had probably just bought it that day. And Courtney ended up being around, so I can't remember if she came over because she heard everything or if I like waved her over. But she worked with Val to get this guy a new mug for free, and then he walked away with the other mug that I guess this second person didn't care about losing. And it's certainly not the only story I have of Courtney bailing my ass out. There's many of those. But, something that sort of makes me feel icky nowadays is just thinking about COVID and like, sharing glasses and things like that. And just having a mug mix up like that is really weird these days. But yeah, that beer truck, man, it was busy. And I remember during the night where it was the Blink 182 tribute band, that was a particularly rough night because that was a busy show and it was just a constant line. We couldn't get the line down no matter what we did. And I remember, the first hour of the show, they played Blink 182's most popular songs, went on a break for 20 minutes or so. They come back for the second set and, they start playing the first song and it's like, oh, they already played that song, but, it's a super popular one, so whatever. And they get into the second song and that's a repeat. And then by the time they hit the third song, I realize what they're doing is they're playing the same set twice. So it's the same hour's worth of songs played 2 times in a row, and I'm just sitting there pouring beers and I'm like, no, like play something different, please. That night tried to break me a little bit. So I just have a lot of memories of the Zinsenplatz beer truck for crazy stories with Music Fest, but plenty of others. And I don't have a ton from 2020, but that's just because it was a smaller thing. There wasn't as much opportunity for, super insane stories to come up. But, I know I'll have plenty more stories moving forward. So another question, did you ever hide from a volunteer? That is a super funny question. It makes me feel like somebody was aggressively looking for me at one point and just like couldn't find me, which makes me a little nervous. Um, they do say that a quarry that does not want to be found is the most dangerous game. The answer is no. I don't hide from volunteers. The only thing that I can think of is this past Chris Mart 2020. I would go into the VC to work on emails a lot because my time at Chris Mart really was my office time. And Mary Lou Straka loved roasting me about that, but I really did have emails to work on. But in that Ops HQ area in the corner of the VC, like the spot that I was sitting in was clearly visible from the opening to that HQ area. So, if I was trying to hide from you guys, I wasn't doing a very good job of it because plenty of people saw me and they did stop and talk to me. So, it wasn't a successful hiding strategy if that's what I was trying, and I certainly wasn't trying. What I will say is that, I'm a very introverted person. I'm very quiet and shy, and it takes me a while to open up to people. So when I'm working events like Chris Mart or Music Fest, where it's just a ton of people all the time, whether it's, volunteers or guests, it can feel like overload. So I do take some moments to myself to just sort of walk away and be at peace and be in a quiet area. Some things I think of are, regular Chris Mart, I'd go from tent 1 to tent 3 and I'd use that back area where the vendors park to get between the tents quickly, and I'd be very slow about the walk from tent 1 to tent 3, and that would give me the time I needed to recharge. Or during a regular Music Fest, I'd go behind the food vendors at Volksplatz and just sit along the creek there and take a moment to let the music wash over me and, recharge, get some energy back, and then go back and tackle whatever I needed to do head on. So short answer is no, I don't hide from volunteers, but every once in a while I do need a second to myself, and I do steal those when I can. Next question, how much Lehigh pizza do you eat? Obviously, when it's a regular Music Fest, I eat nothing but Lehigh pizza. It's so much. Pizza is one of my favorite things to eat. And after Music Fest 2019, I couldn't touch this stuff all throughout August and September. I think it was like might have even been November when I finally like touched a slice of pizza again. So it's really hard to get me to hate pizza, but Music Fest certainly does that. But I will say that, without that, I have been resorting to Lehigh for lunch. When I'm here at the office at the Banana Factory, it's a quick and easy thing to do if I didn't pack anything. And we're getting to the point where, they kind of recognize me when they come in, like, hey, man, how are you? So, body brought to you by Lehigh Pizza, I guess. The last question I'll answer for today, what do you miss the most about Courtney? And, I'm thinking there's two ways this could go. Either Courtney wrote this question, or someone who hates me and really misses Courtney wrote this question. And I mean, hey man, I can't argue with you. But one thing I will say about the 3Cs in general is that we really got along. We were friends as well as coworkers, and that's not just me being corny. I think anyone that was working with us over the course of 2019 and early 2020, recognized how well we all worked together. And things were just really efficient. One of the things we heard during Music Fest 2019 was that, it was one of the best staffed music fests we've ever had. Like we tried to stay ahead of coverage and, call extra people in if we could. And, that's a result of us just working really well together and knowing exactly, what our strengths were and what we could all do at any given time. So I miss having that camaraderie. I miss being able to just turn around and, tell Karina a joke, or if I get an email from a name I don't recognize, I could have asked them, hey, do you recognize this name? Because I'm not quite sure who it's from. Stuff like that. I think because there's less programming to work on at the moment, thanks to COVID, I forget that I'm juggling 3 different jobs, that, this would typically be a thing that 3 people do together. And as we ramp up to something that more closely resembles normal, I'm starting to notice that more and more, that, oh yeah, 3 people are supposed to be doing this. So I mean, it's not just, missing the fact that I have a team to help me with stuff, but also just that, we really were friends, and I miss having that sense of just, we knew what we were thinking just by looking at each other and stuff like that. That's hard to replace. That's hard to find. And I'm very grateful for the time that we had together, and I still talk to them, still talk to Karina and Courtney, and we all still hang out from time to time. So, it's not like that friendship just disappeared, but, it's not part of my work life necessarily anymore, and that can be kind of a sad thing. But, I'm trying my best, and I will have a team again in the future, and hopefully I'll be able to create a team that was just as good as the 3Cs. So that's all the questions I have for you today. Thank you to everyone who submitted those questions. Again, wherever this video is posted, I'll have the link to the submission form posted as well. So if you have questions of your own, feel free to submit them. Nothing is off limits. If there's something I feel I can't answer, I just won't answer it. So, don't stop yourself from asking a question if you have one. Definitely submit one, and hopefully this will be something that's fun moving forward. Until then, thank you all for everything you do, and hopefully I'll see you again in person soon. All right. See you, everybody.